Welcome to South of Left Field. My name is Jimmy, and I'm going to start off Partay 2 with a correction. The previous video, I said Thomas Jefferson founded a political party that became the Republican Party. It turns out that that's not really true. Now, the Republican Party has existed since 1854. I can say that much, and the Democratic Party since 1928. So, here's the thing, that means that these two parties have coexisted for a little over 150 years. They have become and remained the dominant party for all that time. Now, prior to that, parties rose, parties fell apart, and there were periods of low partisanship. So I guess it kind of brings me to the issue I have with parties, which is, why do we end up with these two? Because things seem to be pretty bad as far as partisanship right now. So let's look. There are multiple parties in the United States. There's no reason that a third party, a fourth party, a fifth party can't exist. As a matter of fact, they do exist. The difference between all of these various parties, though, right now seems to be the dominance of our primary two parties. Now, this dominance is based off of the bureaucracy. I mean, let's just pause a moment and consider the playing field of politics. Both parties have a central national committee. They have committees for every state, committees for major cities, sometimes committees for counties. There is a bureaucracy that involves thousands of people on both sides that go all the way down to the local area. And there is communication back and forth, up and down between these various committees and organizations. In addition, each party has its war chest, and that war chest is not limited to just money. They have a large number of contacts. They can provide a list of donors. They can request the donors to help local or individual politician. Beyond that, there's consultants, experts, organizations. They have a list of all of these things that a candidate can avail themselves of to help them organize media campaigns, put out signs, put people knocking on doors and calling phones. There is an entire, if you will, corporation, almost an army, that spans the country. So is it any real wonder that these two parties have become the two 400-pound gorillas in the room? Now, the thing is, any upstart party that thinks it wants to begin to challenge them is going to die the death of 1,000 cuts. Because not only do you have candidates that are backed by large organizations and experts and sources of funding that a small party so far has not been able to match, but anybody who manages to get into a position is going to run into a lot of negative press. There's going to be people that are going to write negative articles. There's going to be, if you will, attack ads. There's going to be a steady drip, drip, drip drumbeat of undercutting anybody who is a third party or independent candidate or politician if they get into office. A few are able to survive this for long periods of time, but it's pretty rare. And so, is it any wonder? Back away, sit down south of left field, look at the playing field. Is it any wonder that these two major parties, their politicians, which is what these political corporations produce, these politicians have no reason to pay any attention to us? The only thing they're going to do is avoid ticking us off so severely that we'll vote that particular individual out of office. And there is our power. Why are these two parties the behemoths in the room? The conclusion that I came to, the realization that dawned over me, sadly, was that I have been supporting them. Over the course of my life, most of the activities and most all of my voting has fallen to these two parties. Folks, It's our fault. Now here's something that they don't want us to hear. This is part of the training and the propaganda, because all my life I have heard and sadly believed that if I didn't vote for one of the two main parties, I wasted my vote. My reply to that today is that every vote I cast that was a compromise, every vote I cast that was a lesser of two evil, every time I held my nose and cast my vote, that was the wasted vote. Third parties have a hard time bringing together good candidates to offer, and they have a hard time because they don't have the organization, the contacts, and the large donors. But the truth of the matter is, right now today, at least until some laws are changed to make it impossible, there is absolutely nothing other than your decision and my decision that keeps us from going to a third party. Third parties are not going to garner power. Third parties are not going to garner a lot of support, and third parties are not going to find themselves with quality politicians, people willing to step up and say, I want to represent you. And the reason that they're not really going to find them is they don't have the votes. Now, that's a catch-22. Seriously. If you can join me in an area that says, I'm sick of being invisible. If you can join me and say, I am sick of being ignored. If you can join with me or anybody else and say, I am just tired of this mess. These two parties have run the country back and forth between them for 150 years. If you don't like where America is today, please consider the possibility that it is entirely the fault of the two existing major parties. Changing this is not an activity that can be accomplished in 1 or 2 or 3 elections. Changing this requires not that you go to the street, not that you turn your wallet out trying to help off-the-wall candidates or any of these other things. You have a power that the two main parties take for granted. You have a vote. The only thing that those two parties put any effort into garnering is our vote. So please consider taking your vote somewhere else every election cycle. Don't stop voting. If you stop, they're happy because most of the people are still engaged with them. Go vote for a wingnut, vote for off the wall, or if you can't find a third party, don't vote at all. If enough of us start doing this, they'll notice. And that's probably the only thing they fear. Thank you for listening. I hope you find these thought-provoking. And I look forward to having the opportunity to speak to you again.